If there's one thing people cannot deny about Mongrel, it's how hard he works. I mean, you can feel his dedication all the time, man. And it's just part of why we really just love seeing him get those amazing limbs. You know, every time he pops off, it's because of all of those hours that he put in the game. Not only, you know, to get where he is, but to stay there as well.
14. Let's go! Let's go! That's a big kill win, baby!
Butcher Crush Zombie, where you at? I'm so pumped up, your motivation guy. That's right, I am back. Your friend, the one and only Keith Allen. And this is the story of Mongrel 2. All right, so last time that we left off, Mongrel had just announced that he was, going to be teaming up with Benji Fish for all future duel competitions. It made sense then because they were both coming off an insane streak with some of the best they've ever played. They'd previously been squad mates together in the Chapter 2 Season 1 FNCS, but the first time they got a chance to really debut as a duo was in December at the 2019 Winter Royale. 2019 was a special year, though, because, it was the only time Epic decided that there were going to be no qualifiers for the Winter Royale. It was just whoever had the most points at the end of the day would get a nice, clean payout. And so on the first day they competed, they got 266 plays. That's still $600 between them, but that was a massive underperformance for two of the best players in the world. And since both of them were unsatisfied with how they did, both him and Benji Fish as UK players decided to also enter into the North American East version of the Winter Royale. They were playing on 150 ping each, with half of their bullets getting eaten entirely by this server. But this time, they came in 24th. What? That's right, guys. Somehow they managed to win $2,200 playing on an entirely different continent. I know what you're probably thinking, like most pros do that for every tournament. That's not really impressive. All right, let me remind you this, guys. Like, we're talking about Mongrel here, and he did not change his playstyle for any of these games.
Laser, he's 1 HP here. Dead!
He got above 10 limbs in 4 of the games and was somehow making rushing at them even work, even though he should have always just been at a disadvantage doing it. So on day 2 of the Winter Royale, they get 7th place in Europe and 155th on NA East. And on the final day of the tournament, they get 12th overall in Europe and 35th in NA. And one of those games in Europe, they got 34 kills and the Victory Royale. They took out more than a third of the entire match, man. Mongrel and Benji Fish were in top 4 coming out of this tournament. But they also, both kept, just looking forward to play high level matches again and again. And so they didn't really have to wait that long because in March, Epic laid out the conditions for the upcoming Season 2 FNCS. This time it was duels, but the Cash Cups would also heavily favor solos. In other words, it was kind of a perfect scenario for Mongrel. He thrives in those, one-on-one fights, and this just meant there'd be more of them. So the warm-up made it clear that the two of them hadn't lost their edge. In the qualifiers, they got 7th place. In the semis, they got 11th, and overall 21st. They announced that they were dropping at Sweaty Sands, and most teams in the final decided, to avoid that location entirely so they didn't have to deal with them. And at the end of week 1 of the official FNCS tournament, they had got 2nd place overall. Their placements were quite good in each match. But what honestly pushed them to the top spots was just how consistent they were at getting kills. That was amazing, but that would slowly slip over the next few weeks, and they'd get 15th in their heat group and miss out on a spot in the grand finals by 3 spaces. They did get unlucky though, with bad loot and spawns and Mongrel's game crashing in at the same match. But there was another big problem that was actually caused not by Mongrel, but by Mongrel's reputation.
I'm getting kills.
Mongrel had become such a famous figure of Fortnite and an icon of the game. He was easily one of the most watched players both in and outside of the World Cup. And so to the point that, even people who don't play Fortnite know who he is. And with a fan base of literally millions, he had created an entirely new generation of players that wanted to be just like him, if not better. And so at the same time, man, a lot of the best players from today didn't actually attend the World Cup. It was because they saw Mongrel achieve so much with his unique playstyle at such a young age that it inspired them as well. It proved that, with enough dedication and hard work, like they could also have a serious career playing this game. And they all wanted a piece of the pie. And so in just a few months after the World Cup, the competition had leveled up so much, and Mongo's philosophy around competing changed. He was already playing for hours every day and practicing, but he now had another focus. He had to also keep improving. Because over the last 2 years, man, like the average level skill of like the Fortnite community has risen a whole lot. And so if you go back and check gameplay from even a year ago, like it's ridiculous how much faster and optimized the game's gotten since then. Players are a lot more consistent at everything now as well. And so when you're as famous as Mongrel is, people constantly tell you when you're underperforming, even when you don't want to hear it. So he started working even harder than before because he didn't want to let any of his fans down. And all of those solo cash cups ended up being extremely helpful for Mongrel because Epic announced that they were hosting a rare invitational only for that season. And it was solos. Mongrel was working the hardest he ever had, and the format suited him. So what could possibly go wrong? Everything, apparently. The Invitational was set up to have 2 weeks of games, and the top players of that would just go into the grand finals. In his first week, he was actually playing quite consistently, and was in 5th place at one point. But his game ended up getting an infinite loading glitch, and he couldn't play the last 3 games of week 1 at all. And he dropped all the way down to 102nd place. He could still make it to the grand finals if he really performed well in week 2, so of course his game crashed in the first match. But apart from that, like he was actually doing quite well, and things were looking great. And then he got the loading glitch again, and this time it didn't lose him that many games, and he did have such a strong lead that he still got 20th place, and was therefore through to the finals. But you have to admit this, man, like it must have been so demotivating to just lose games outside your control while you're playing so good. And so then in the grand finals, he ended up with 26th place, which is still an incredible achievement, but he had terrible luck with zone spawns and he wasn't really that happy with it either. He spent all this time working extremely hard, but then underperformed purely because of luck. But it's after this loss, it's what's important, really. Like he understood that he didn't do anything wrong, and he kept working hard, and that ended up actually paying off down the line in season 4. But before then, Mongrel actually got his own opportunity to host a tournament in a partnership with Epic, the Mongrel Cup. It was just like Bugha's, but it was just a few weeks before it, on the 14th of July. And the setup was the same, with the entire stream taking place on Mongrel's own channel. With its own commentary and camera work, over 500,000 people entered to celebrate Mongrel's performance at the World Cup. And then a few days later, on the 19th of July, Mongrel actually competed in 2 big tournaments on the same day, DreamHack Europe and DreamHack NA East. He got 46 in Europe and wasn't satisfied. Afterward, he went on Twitter and he talked about how playing in solos leaves too much up to randomness, and squad modes actually allow players to show off more of their skill. And then he streamed DreamHack NA with Mitro coaching him and got 68. Unfortunately, the next FNCS was a solo tournament, so he'd have to wait just a little bit more for his chance at playing in a squad. In the first qualifier, he actually got 8th place, which meant, he was through to the heat stage. He still competed in the other qualifiers, but never really touched the top 10 spot again. But when it was time for the semifinals, Mongrel actually grabbed 2nd place. And at the end of the grand finals, he gets 16th place, which was an upset for a lot of his fans, especially since he had been playing so consistent leading up to it. But he knew that it was a bad performance, and he just looked forward to the future playing Trios instead. Trios Cash Cups had already been around for a few months, but Mongrel didn't really have a consistent group yet. He was playing with Mitro a lot again, but they needed someone else to really fill out their trio. And then they found their missing piece in Taysom. He was their in-game leader, man, meaning he was calling most of the plays, and he's incredibly talented as a player in his own right. He had literally just won the solo FNCS, but in practice, if you actually watch the 3 of them, they'd all really just do their own thing. But at the end of the day, what matters is how they perform, right? And they might have been the scariest trio in Fortnite history up to that point.
Nice.
So for the entire, FNCS season, they consistently placed in the top 25 in every single tournament they played in. Here's a quick rundown of how they performed, right? They got first in the warm-up for the Season 4 FNCS. They qualified in all 3 weeks it was possible, and then got 4th in the heat. And when it was time for grand finals, they came in 1st and split a prize of $111,000 between the 3 of them. Anyone who follows Mongo on Twitter knows that he tweets motivational stuff all the time. Get up and grind, that sort of thing, right? But that attitude of constantly grinding is kind of, unhealthy sometimes. If you don't remember to really relax and really take some time off every once in a while, all that stress can really add up, and that's for any human being. And so when you're playing at the level Mongo is for tons of hours every day and streaming, it's probably even worse. So at the end of 2020, Mongo took a break. He didn't play Fortnite for a few weeks, and he didn't really stream either. Now, understandably, Tayson, had his own career to build as a player and, wanted to be a part of a team that was going to constantly grind like he was already doing. So he decided to leave them. Unfortunately, this ended up, causing a massive rift between them. And, it's actually likely that we'll never see Mongo and Micho team up with Tayson again because of just how badly the breakup was. Which is a shame since they were so good together. Both him and Micho would stick together for the next trio FNCS, but most people they wanted to play with already had a group or didn't fit their style. They had gotten back into grinding Fortnite again, but because of the circumstances, they didn't end up qualifying through the Season 5 FNCS. And so that takes us today. Mongo's currently playing with Micho and Melon in the Season 6 FNCS. And honestly, anything can happen. His game's already crashed once already, and he hasn't qualified through yet. But Fortnite did add the Primal Shotgun, which is still pretty good even after all the nerfs. Either way, man, he's a world-class player and an inspiration to so many of us. But your crush on me, that's it for the video today. Feel free to really take a look at the rest of our content for strategies, player stories, so much more. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and if you want to connect with me even more on my Instagram, connect with Your Motivation Guy. I'm right here at Your Motivation Guy. And man, keep grinding. Don't stop, don't give up, don't surrender. And I'll see you on the next one.